Welcome back to Nature Labs and our coverage of the 2025 Canadian federal election. There's a few trend lines that are beginning to emerge as more votes are tabulated, and they're worth discussing. The first, of course, is the Conservative vote. We talked about this earlier today. The polls coming into this election suggested the Conservatives would be held to about 120, 125 seats. They're clearly outperforming that total, at least at this stage of the night. What that means, again, is that last-minute events can change people's voting patterns, as we discussed earlier. But again, also, so too is the importance of a party's political apparatus. And again, like we talked about earlier, the Conservatives had an advantage coming into this campaign, having raised more money, having better ID'd their vote because they were prepared for this election, and of course, they had a sophisticated get-out-the-vote apparatus. And you know how in baseball, data analytics are all the rage? We know exactly how a batter can swing and how hard they hit the ball and what pitchers they need to line up against. The same thing in politics. We might not love analytics, but it does matter. What's interesting is, in past elections, the Liberals haven't done well in the popular vote, but they have done well in voter efficiency, basically converting enough key voters in enough key ridings to win the overall race and form government, even if they lose the overall national popular vote. The invert is happening tonight. At least so far, the Conservatives are trailing in the national popular vote, but they're doing well in the key ridings that matter. Again, not enough maybe to matter to form government, but enough to matter that they're getting very high vote totals. That's a significant increase on the standing they had at dissolution in Parliament, and that means they'll have a large say in how the House of Commons is structured in the next Parliament. So again, voter efficiency, something the Liberals have always done well. The Conservatives have stolen that idea and made it their own. Their analytic advantage is clearly coming out to play tonight. Although, agreed, a lot still to be decided. But if this continues to hold up, what we'll see is basically a very slim minority government for Mark Carney. Now, those numbers are actually pretty good for a minority. But in past minority governments, 6 of the last 8 governments we've had have been minorities, the minor parties, the Bloc Québécois, the NDP, the Greens, have played a major role in that balance of power. But tonight, the minor parties are beginning to be diminished. The NDP might not make official party status. The Green Party right now stands to lose at least 1 seat. We'll see how it turns out at the end of the night. But what we are seeing now is kind of a trend towards a two-party system, a much closer vote totals in terms of seats in Parliament. That means the Bloc Québécois, while having their vote share diminish, while seeing their seat totals go down, actually might still hold the balance of power in the next Parliament. So even though at a time when separatism is being retreated, at least in some ways, in the province of Quebec, it may actually gain a bigger foothold in our national discourse because of this current scenario that's beginning to play itself out. Again, we'll see how this ends up at the end of the evening, but for the time being, you're looking at a minority government from Mark Carney that's just a few seats above the Conservatives and the Bloc Québécois holding the balance of power, meaning that if the Parti de Québécois, their provincial cousin, who is expected to win the provincial election in Quebec next year, they would have an opportunity to reinforce a separatist agenda, even at a time when support for separatism is at an all-time low in the province. A real quirk of a system that we're seeing play out this evening. Then again, the other quirk of that system is how we should always be cognizant that polls, while still accurate on a national level at that moment in time, can't always take into account last-minute events they can't poll for, like what happened on Saturday, as we discussed earlier, and of course can't take into account a party that was thrown into election last minute without having the proper apparatus in place, and a party that was well prepared for tonight and is certainly demonstrating that advantage on the political playing field. So those are a couple of trends to watch as the night unfolds, and we'll see how that impacts the structure of our next Parliament and, of course, the ideas that the government wants to implement.